June 2024. The American Airlines Center is vibrating. The Dallas Mavericks are in the NBA Finals. They have the best scorer on the planet in Luka Dončić and the most skilled closer in history in Kyrie Irving. They didn't win it all, but they were there. They were on the porch of a dynasty. Then came the summer. The front office didn't just stand pat, they swung for the fences. Klay Thompson, the greatest shooter of a generation, arrives in a 16 blockbuster. The narrative was set. Dallas was the heavy favorite to come out of the West. They had the shooting, the stardom, and the momentum. For the first 2 months of the 2024-25 season, the dream was real. Dallas was 19-10. Klay was hitting 40% from deep. Luka was averaging a triple-double. They looked like a juggernaut. But in the NBA, a juggernaut is a fragile word. They say pride comes before the fall, but in Dallas, the fall didn't just happen, it was a vertical drop into an abyss. This is the story of the 2025 Dallas Mavericks, a season that began with championship rings in sight and ended with the most controversial #1 overall pick in the history of the league. This was the fastest collapse in NBA history. December 25, 2025, a marquee Christmas Day matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The world is watching. In the third quarter, Luka Dončić drives to the lane, plants his foot, and collapses. The diagnosis is a grade 2 calf strain. Usually, this is a 3-week setback, a blip on the radar. But behind the scenes, the friction had been building for months. Reports began to leak. Whispers of tension between Luka and the coaching staff regarding defensive effort and conditioning. For the first time, the Luka era felt unstable. With Luka out, the Mavericks went 3-11. The Klay Thompson spacing didn't matter if there was no one to collapse the defense. The vibes in the locker room shifted from championship confidence to existential dread. Then came February 2nd, a date that will live in Dallas sports infamy. Imagine waking up to a notification that changes the sport forever. No one expected it. No one asked for it. Nico Harrison, the Mavericks GM, pulls the trigger. Luka Dončić, the face of the franchise, the 26-year-old MVP candidate, is traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. In return, Dallas receives Anthony Davis and Max Christie. The logic from the front office was cold. We need a defensive anchor. We need to maximize Kyrie's window. AD is that anchor. But the fans didn't see logic. They saw a betrayal. The American Airlines Center turned into a fortress of boos. The local media called it franchise suicide. The Luka for AD swap wasn't just a trade. It was a fundamental shift in the team's soul. And then the curse officially began. On February 8th, Anthony Davis, a player with a history of durability issues, makes his debut. He plays 14 minutes, he blocks 3 shots, he looks like the savior, and then he lands awkwardly after a contest at the rim. Diagnosis: a severe adductor injury, out indefinitely. In 1 week, the Mavericks had traded away their heartbeat for a superstar who was now in a walking boot. With Luka in LA and AD in the training room, the entire burden fell on Kyrie Irving. Kyrie was spectacular. For 3 weeks, he played some of the most inspired basketball of his career, dragging a depleted roster to gutsy wins. But you can only redline an engine for so long before it blows. On March 3rd, the final nail was driven into the coffin. In a scramble for a loose ball against the Grizzlies, Kyrie's knee buckled. A torn ACL. The Mavericks were now a team without Luka, without Kyrie, and without AD. They were starting G League call-ups in crucial Western Conference games. The dysfunction wasn't just on the court, it was in the air. The team went on a 12-game losing streak. They didn't just lose, they were non-competitive. By the end of March, Dallas was the laughingstock of the league. They went from a 19-10 start to a 39-43 finish. They slid into the 10th seed, only to be humiliated in the play-in tournament. The finals favorites were officially done. May 2025, the NBA Draft Lottery. The Mavericks are in a strange position. Because they finished with 39 wins, they aren't true bottom feeders. They have the 14th best odds to win the top pick, a 1.8% chance. In the room, the atmosphere is heavy. The Dallas representative looks like they'd rather be anywhere else. The fan base is calling for the GM's head. The trade for Anthony Davis looks like the worst move in the history of professional sports. Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum begins opening the envelopes. The 14th pick is not Dallas. The 10th pick is not Dallas. As the names are called, the realization sets in. Dallas has jumped. They've moved into the top 4. The room goes silent. The first pick in the 2025 NBA draft goes to the Dallas Mavericks. The 1.8% miracle. Against all mathematical probability, the team that destroyed its own roster, traded its superstar, and suffered a historic collapse had won the lottery. The prize? Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg isn't just a prospect. He is a 6'9" everything player. Defensive dominance, elite playmaking, and a competitive fire that scouts haven't seen since Kevin Garnett. On June 25, 2025, the Mavericks officially selected Cooper Flagg with the #1 overall pick. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. The media didn't call it a collapse anymore. They called it the Great Pivot. By luck or by some twisted design, Dallas had turned a dysfunctional, injury-plagued season into the arrival of a generational prospect who could lead them for the next 15 years. But at what cost? Luka Dončić is currently wearing Lakers purple and gold, leading Los Angeles back to relevance. Anthony Davis is still rehabbing, trying to prove he can stay on the floor for the Mavericks' new teenage savior. Was a curse, or was it a blessing in disguise? The 2025 Dallas Mavericks are a cautionary tale for every front office in the league. It shows how quickly a championship window can slam shut. It shows how one trade, one injury, and one bad Christmas day can ripple through a franchise until everything you built is gone. But it also shows the chaotic beauty of the NBA. In 1 year, Dallas lost a legend, gained a superstar who couldn't play, lost their secondary star to injury, and ended up with the most coveted teenager on the planet. They call it the fastest collapse in history, but in Dallas, they just call it the price of admission for Cooper Flagg. Whether Flagg leads them back to the finals or becomes the next chapter in the Dallas curse remains to be seen. But one thing is for certain, we will never see a season quite like 2025 ever again. The Mavericks flew too close to the sun, burned their wings, and somehow landed in a bed of gold.